So Luca Tucconi,
Yes,
Italian
ma'am.
last name. You got to say it right. Probably
Yes,
butchered it.
Tucconi, Tucconi.
Tucconi, Tucconi. Yeah, my friend. I've obviously had the honor of being friends with you for a couple of years. You were the first South African Twitch partner. Crazy. The other day when I saw you in person, I was like, yeah, you were like one of the first Twitch partners. You were like, yeah, actually, I was the first Twitch partner in South Africa. So that's crazy. You also worked for Red Bull, did some amazing stuff with them. You were at all the events, always working so hard. Yeah, and that's kind of like how I know you, but I'm going to give you a chance to
Thank you.
insert
Yeah,
anything else into that
professional
introduction.
fridge packer.
Yes.
Gotta make those
Yeah.
cans look real good in the fridge, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's important.
but no, thank you for the kind intro, and yeah, what a pleasure, obviously working with you occasionally, Chloe, as well. I think we all wish you stuck around a little bit longer as well, or a lot
Yeah.
longer. Hopefully, we'll have you back soon as well. But no, it's yeah, it's been what a journey in gaming for me. I mean, thinking back to my kind of late high school days when I really started to kind of enjoy gaming in a more competitive sense. Was just fortunately I went to school with guys who loved Battlefield and Call of Duty. Had a couple lands at my house where I needed my mom or to convince my mom to actually get me a PC so I could join my mates. I was always a console guy coming out of primary school. Loved games. As I mentioned, my older brother is actually here from overseas. He introduced me to like my first console, a Sega, and then a PS1. And it was always console. Then into high school, met his mates who were already on PC, and I just instantly got convinced that I need to get a PC of my own. Seeing them play in a more competitive environment, I had a few lands at my mom's house. She was so kind, like bless my mom for giving us her lounge on countless weekends for the homies to come over and play. And that kind of just pushed through high school into early varsity. Kind of my first and second years were my last years competing, and were probably my best years playing for Bravado Gaming. I captained the Call of Duty team from 2010 to 2013. We won the
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty Championships, which is now known as the Telkom Masters, twice in a row. So that was always like my real, I would say, my favorite moments was definitely being a gaming athlete, if you can really call us that nowadays. And that transitioned into hosting my own tournaments. So it was 2013. I played my last tournament at Telkom at Rage. That was the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 tournament. Those
Mm-hmm.
kind of 3 to 4 years of winning those championships, took that prize money, started my own agency in late 2013 called Online Arena or Arena. Ran that for about 6 years. Ended up actually moving up to Joburg towards the end of the tenure of the business, kind of in the process of selling it to New Metro at the time. That didn't go as planned, as investments, and a young 25-year-old with stars in his eyes thinks everything's just going to work out, but it actually takes a lot longer than a person would think. But in that
Yeah.
process, towards the end of my time in Joburg, I had the absolute blessing where actually the sports manager at the time, as well as the field specialist at the time, walked into my venue in Kempton Park from Red Bull, South Africa, from the Cape Town head office. And they just really directly posed me the question. I guess they got a bit of information on me from other agencies that they spoke to. They spent a lot of time kind of connecting with the local ISPs to understand the landscape. Ended up in my door and were like, dude, do you want to come back to Cape Town and start the gaming department for Red Bull South Africa? And it literally took me like half a second. It was yes. So
Say less.
moved literally. Like it was 2 years before that. Packed my whole life into my little Corsa, including Larry, who's now my wife. Moved up to Joburg. 2 years later, repacked the life back into the garden and back to Cape Town. And yeah, here we are today, 5 years later. Working at Red Bull for 5 years, really just an absolutely amazing experience. I'm sure we'll touch onto that a little bit more. And yeah, this
Yeah.
past year now, I'd say 9 months since departing the business has been really getting back into that desire for playing games for a living. It sounds ridiculous, but
Mm-hmm.
games, maybe I wouldn't be seen as that first off as like this absolute nerd, but I am a huge geek from like geek culture. My statues in the background, collecting old comics and old games. Playing pretty much anything under the sun, not just a competitive COD player. That's kind of what I've always been known of,
Mm-hmm.
like uncle of Call of Duty here in South Africa. But really, I am just a general gamer, and it's given me so much joy in life. Probably the most fun I would have besides, with family and friends. It really is that huge source of joy for me. So being able to go back to actually just playing and making that my kind of day by day activity, finding a way to make that into a career, that was my desire. It always was. Even selfishly slow
Mm-hmm.
when I started my agency back in 2013, it was like, how do we create an ecosystem here in South Africa where I could go maybe back into the playing pool and actually compete for a living, or now make
Mm-hmm.
content and entertain for a living through gaming. So it was always a little bit of a selfish kind of fuel for me starting my agency and eventually obviously being a part of Red Bull. It just turned into a much bigger journey, working with amazing people and bringing some really cool opportunities to the country and for some of our local athletes and players. And at the end of the day, it was really just a huge learning experience for me. And we'll touch on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've had quite a journey, and you are very like humble about it. You don't walk around like you've done all these things. It's only when someone really asks you that you're like, yeah, I did. Like pioneered a couple of things, like started a couple of big things. Like it's really cool to hear. And I know this because obviously we've spent time in person together, and it's only when someone's like, oh, so like, what do you do? You're like, oh, humble about everything.
No,
But
I
you
thank
really
people
like,
like Yeah, I can thank people like
yeah,
you for at least allowing me to be a little bit more, if you want to say it, like proud, I guess, of these things.
yeah,
There's been a few people in the scene over the last couple of years have been like, dude, you like really own that. It was never
yeah,
really something that you would. How can I put it? Like whatever I did was always for the love of the game. I always like kind of try and pull that
mm-hmm,
that line out. I just love games. I love seeing people have
yeah,
fun playing them, and if we can all kind of find a way to make it an ecosystem that allows us to make a living, but also provide joy and in a pretty interesting kind of period in the world of today. It's such a cool tool just to de-stress,
yeah,
reconnect with the people that are closest to you. And I mean, going back to like COVID, that's kind of where it was really seen as that opportunity, And I think we haven't like, properly grabbed onto that here in South Africa just yet.
yeah. Yeah, we're very much behind in the sense of the greater picture. But I think COVID was like, obviously it was a terrible thing, but that COVID period was really good for esports and gaming in general. Because I think a lot of people from outside gaming were like, oh, what's this thing that I can still do while we're all locked up and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really also allowed us in a way to filter what doesn't work here.
Yeah.
We've really tried to do some big stuff. I mean, even before I was at Red Bull with my own agency, there's that season in 2017, 2018 where every agency was popping out these million-rand prize pools and these huge payouts for players. And it was too soon, too big, too early, in a sense where
Yeah.
I think that the culture of gaming in South Africa needs to be prioritized, where it's someone like yourself, myself, rocking up at a venue and just enjoying the environment, whether it be like at a Comic Con or a Rage, and smaller environments like the old lands of before organized chaos. And you were chatting to Jules earlier as well, and you guys
Mm-hmm.
were touching on to OC as well. In Johannesburg, you had MPLD that was happening every month. In Durban, you had Fragland every month. So 300, 500 plus people coming together, and connecting on just playing games. It wasn't really tournaments. I mean, you'd rock up and literally be playing natural
Yeah.
selection and hopping onto Half-Life servers and old Warcraft maps and stuff with no real competition in the back of your mind, just having fun,
Yeah.
hanging out and
Yeah.
sharing the love for the culture. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone the other day was saying like, oh, I don't think he'll ever watch this, but he was like, "Oh, I'm worried about my son is just like gaming all the time. He's like 20, he's like he's just gaming all the time, and I'm worried that he doesn't have a social life." And I was like, actually,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much that happens socially around gaming. It's like one of the best, communities where you can meet people in like a wholesome way, like outside of, jawling or whatever. So
$100%.
I was just like, don't doubt that he can like make friends and stuff through gaming. It's probably really, really good that he's in a community. There's so many like events and like so many different types of people that you can talk to. And these barriers of like age and location and stuff are kind of taken down. I mean, location to an extent. We've got like ping situations and servers,
Oh, yeah.
but those barriers are removed, Whereas in like real life, we call it like real life in
Oh
the
yeah.
gaming world.
Hey, I roll back to
There's
like my late school days, early varsity. I could barely talk to another human being, let it be like a dude or a girl. Like I was absolutely useless, like socially so insecure. And just through my friends group, playing online, communicating, in a team, attending these lands,
yeah,
and being forced to be on stage and accepting prize pools and having to do like little prize givings and all these things. It just kind of it really broke that shell. Even streaming and
yeah,
commentating eventually, now I kind of enjoy the idea of conversation and being on stage. Honestly, homie, 32 now, 12 years ago,
yeah.
that would have been
Same
impossible.
thing.
So yeah, from a social perspective, it's definitely a tool, a very powerful tool. I can understand from a
Yeah,
parent's perspective, it can be scary. Um, Obviously, me being kind of like the first uh, um, son in the family that really took gaming to that level of trying to turn it into a career and kind of
mm-hmm.
completely immersing it into myself. My nephews and nieces, younger brothers, they've all become very interested in it. So obviously, my brothers and how can I say my brothers and sisters are now all thinking that I'm this bad influence, but they're kind of
Yeah,
seeing the benefit of it now that they're all growing up and the kids are actually all very
yeah,
successful, more than successful than I am academically, at least. So
yeah,
it really was it's a strong tool if managed correctly. If
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
too much can be bad. I
Of
can
course.
definitely attest to that too. I mean, Palworld launched last month, and I can tell you now, Larry was not very impressed. I spent like 2 weeks, 4 a.m. mornings trying to like maximize the game so I could create videos. But you realize you
Yeah,
get lost sometimes, and you just forget
yeah,
to
yeah.
escape and realize there is a world out there. So you do have to manage the time for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even like I think some people know this. I don't play games like recreationally unless I'm um occasionally like with the homies, but unless I'm like streaming or doing something specific for it, I don't like just play games because I'm so worried about like getting absorbed into
Yeah.
it. Um
Yeah, it's tough. I think
so
that's why
mm,
working kind of the day job and having that like yearning, it was difficult. I tell you now, because yeah,
yeah,
I am
yeah.
I'm not ashamed to say like I'm genuinely kind of an addicted gamer for sure.
um yeah, it's hard to believe you say you kind of like had like I don't know if social anxiety would be the way to put it, but now the last event I saw you at, I think it was Rage.
Yes, yes. Oh, that was the
Yeah.
finale. Chloe's farewell.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you were on the mic and it would, it's really hard to tell that you ever had that sort of apprehension around, speaking to people.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, even from like the gaming side to
Yeah.
obviously working at Red Bull. Are you sitting in boardrooms and speaking to these big teams overseas, and in a way you can't like fool these guys because you're not talking to a
Mhm.
local corporate here in South Africa who's just a marketing executive or whatever that's never really immersed themselves in gaming. You're dealing with guys and girls, in Europe and America, the Far East, who are just as addicted to the kind of
Mhm.
industry as I am, as immersed, as talented or knowledgeable about games and the culture. Plus, they have the experience of working in this massive corporation, understanding marketing
Yeah.
and how to sell a product and be credible to an audience. So, in that sense, it was also a massive wake up call, but also just got me so used to being in those environments. And luckily,
Mhm.
talking about gaming, it was really easy for me to communicate, and slowly but surely your
Yeah.
confidence builds and suddenly you can talk
Yeah.
about other things a lot more freely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I know you Red Bull approached you, which is interesting because there's so many people that want to work for a company like Red Bull. Even with my time interacting with you while you were at Red Bull and Red Bull by proxy, there's so many interesting things about Red Bull's marketing that I think a lot of people don't know, and I want you to confirm or deny these things if you can.
With pleasure.
um, they don't take photos of a closed Red Bull can.
Yeah, look,
Is that
I'll
right?
be straight up there. It's like hard rule, like, and that's kind of more just from
Hmm.
like a logical perspective. If you're using a
Yeah,
product, you'd be using it, right? Like you're not just going to be
yeah.
holding
Like,
it
why is it
for the sake
closed?
of it. And that was one of the things I loved the most about working at Red Bull was this this very core almost requirement that if we work with anyone from a marketing perspective on a campaign, on an event, there must be a genuine love for the brand and the product. It doesn't come from that there's an opportunity there and you can make some cash and work with Red Bull, meet some cool people and build your network. You really must love the product, because then you're going to get that genuine interaction with that individual, and it's going to work out the best from both sides. So I think that was one of the key things. If you want to be a part of the brand and work with us, well, first, actually, do you like the product and do you use it?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be out there in the workforce, whether you're in gaming, or if you're on camera all weekend, if you're working the counter at a garage, you're using that can is there for use. It's to go drive and be more efficient on the road, to be more efficient while you're studying, while you're playing, while you're being active on the sports field. So it really is a functional product. That's how I've always seen it, and that's how it kind of linked to me was, look, if you're going to post a picture with a can, well, you should probably be drinking it, not just for the sake of posting a picture, Yeah. So 100% was a rule. It's like, Luca, that can better be open, bro, or don't put it there.
Otherwise you're just posing with the product, like you're not actually using it. It's not functional.
It was one of the fun like little marketing like gimmicks that came out of it was actually big esports. They're a German team. And there was a sniper on their team, a Counter-Strike player called Alu. And there was like a cooler on stage once, and like unknowingly the fridge was closed. He was like, wait, are these cans for drinking? And literally you heard it on the microphone. And then funny enough, like a month later, Big got signed, and the whole like ad at the beginning where you actually took out the can, it's like, yes, it's actually for drinking.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's those kind of like natural interactions that come out of being diligent with that, being quite strict on how the brand is represented.
Yeah. There are also something I know a lot of people don't know, because I tell everyone this. I had my Red Bull fridge there in Santon, and everyone was like helping themselves to Red Bulls when they came over.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be like, do you know that there's a left-handed and a right-handed can?
Yeah,
right?
So
that's true.
100%. Also, one of the craziest things I found out as well, obviously, when it comes to, I guess, the photographic elements of it, I don't know how, like if it's changed or if it is 1,000,000% true, but even just from trial and error, like as you can imagine, you're a left-handed sportsman, you're gonna take a swig of the can. You want that shot to show the brand correctly. So yeah, it's thinking far ahead in that sense. So making sure that the can is also well represented on camera. I mean, being very recognizable. If you think of like any other beverage. There's a picture, and kind of like if you're a little bit distant, you couldn't really picture out what that can is, but you can see that Red Bull can anyway. It's so distinctive.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Red Bull, what I wanted to ask initially was about how you started working for Red Bull, because so many people are interested in working for a company like Red Bull. So they found you actually.
Yes, it was still the early days, I guess, of like esports locally. At the time when I started Arena, like Telkom was really the only local brand running a league. So they had the Telkom DGL, which became Telkom Masters. That was really the only reference point from like a competitive gaming side of things, in terms of like cups, tournaments here and there. There was the guys at Clan Connection, which was managed by Nick Holden and Clint. They were like part of working with MWeb, so that MWeb support. But in terms of like just a purely independent individual who was kind of working in the space, I would say Arena was probably the only like individual, purely independently managed agency at the time. And very early days, there wasn't really a huge pool of, if you want to say it, project managers that also were a core esports and gaming fan. So at the time, I think the options were quite limited in terms of who was out there that could have kind of managed that role. Also had that kind of experience of being on the ground and running an event and dealing with project management and delegating and having a network of agencies to work with. Obviously, I had a good a network of if you want to say it, team members from different distributors, from hardware to ISPs that we could obviously link into our projects quite quickly. So yeah, all of those things kind of came with the RoBoHoBo package, was just that history of gaming and esports, and then just the passion for project management and bringing awesome occasions to life. So I think that was kind of the main reason. I'm pretty sure they would have gone through a recruitment process before that. I obviously
Mm-hmm.
didn't see like job applications or anything like that. So, thank goodness maybe not enough people applied, and they ended up knocking on my door because it really was kind of like the best 5 years of my life. Once that
Not enough people
was in
apply.
place. No, I'm serious. Like back then, it was so fresh, and if you look at now, since I left,
Yeah.
totally different story. The application
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
was quite extensive. Obviously, there's a new specialist there now.
You do
Yeah,
like
so
the
it was
wingfinders thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
skipped that. I had no brand college. I just got thrown right in. Like literally, I remember joining the team. It was kind of late 2018, July, August. Comic Con was a month later. The first Comic Con
Mm-hmm.
it was Kailami, at the
Yeah.
racetrack,
Yeah.
and had Red Bull MEO first tournament literally a week before after I got kind of brought onto the team. Had to put the project together. Had Gareth Woods and Sam Tickle actually commentating on that, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of keeping on that trend of I really always enjoyed giving the opportunity for local players to make it overseas, getting that chance to
Mm-hmm.
go and play on international shores. And can you believe it? My first event, we get the winner of Clash Royale to go play at the World Championship in Germany, a young man by the name of John Haig. He was 16 years old at the time. His parents were like, going back to your point, his parents were not keen
Mm-hmm.
on the idea at all. They were so scared, like their kid going to Europe for a computer game. Like, what is this all about? Seems so dodgy.
Yeah.
We brought his parents in. Luckily, my boss at the time, he sat down with them. Obviously, he had years of experience in Red Bull, working in multiple regions from the US, South America to South Africa. So he was really able to paint them
Mm-hmm.
the picture of kind of this amazing opportunity for their son, and once you see like the parents really realize, okay, this is something a lot bigger.
Yeah.
It really needs those types of like that gravitas, those big moments to really prove it to parents. I'll roll back to
Mm-hmm.
myself as well. And I mean, leaving varsity in my second year, telling my mom, like, I want to really do this agency thing. I'm really enjoying it. It's doing well. No one really believed it. They're like, what are you doing? And luckily, in that process of kind of pulling out of varsity, I had my big first event at the CTICC in Cape Town, which had about
Mm-hmm.
500 people in the Audi 2 auditorium, was the Electronic Sports World Cup qualifier for Counter-Strike. Bravado won that year and went to was Paris at the time. And that was also like, oh, okay, shit, Luca, this is a lot more serious than what you made it out to be. Just sitting in your room playing games and
Yeah.
talking to a camera, it's real, it's
Yeah.
tangible, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
what international opportunities have done. I believe, if anything, I think getting the chance to go overseas is better than a decent kind of paycheck from a prize pool here in South Africa. From
Mm-hmm.
experience,
Mm-hmm.
5-10 grand is gone in December. Nowadays things are so expensive.
Yeah.
You want to
Absolutely.
create that,
Yeah.
that ecosystem for players. But yeah, that's going
Yeah.
back onto the point of like, are we really ready for esports in South Africa? Is
Yeah.
it really should that be where the main effort is going for a lot of individuals, or should it rather be on really cultivating this culture of
Mm-hmm.
gaming? Yeah.
So by saying that, I mean, that does point to something I wanted to chat about a little bit later. But by saying that, do you mean the difference between like esports as a sport or gaming entertainment?
Yes, I think esports is a sport. It's like when it went from like competitive gaming, got kind of shortened into this esports word or
Mm-hmm.
abbreviation. What would it be called? called? I feel like that when
Yeah.
that change happened, it was almost a little too soon. Starting these big
Mm-hmm.
franchise leagues in the US, in Europe for Call of Duty, Overwatch, League of Legends. They all had these massive peaks, these big hype moments, and has kind of died down a little bit. I would say probably Riot is one of the few that have done it really well, and like the LEC or League of Legends Championship Series has been going all these years and seems to be sustainable to some extent. But it was
Mm-hmm.
really this like kind of massive hype moment. Everyone kind of saw this cash falling from the skies. These hedge fund investors getting involved in these teams overseas and in the big leagues. I mean, there was a phase where teams were paying like $20 million to buy into the Overwatch League, and there
Yeah.
was just no chance you're getting a return on that. So you had all
Yeah.
this investment, it didn't pay back, things started to fall apart, and they're slowly getting rebuilt, and then they kind of fall apart a little bit again. Because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's just that comparison to sports came a bit too soon. There's just too many variables in gaming and esports to really kind of validate it as this kind of professional competitive sport. And this is talking from someone who's like, super esports addicted. I love
Yeah.
competitive gaming. I'm watching streams every weekend, whether it's Capcom Cup, Street Fighter, it's CS, it's Call of Duty, it's some Dota or League of Legends. I just, as much as we want it to be real, I just don't think
Mm-hmm.
there is an ecosystem for it yet, especially not in Africa. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my sort of thing around Africa is like, there are so many South Africans, for example, that can't afford, somewhere to play a game. Like mobile games, great, much bigger, but so much of South Africa just, don't have the finances to, be able to play games.
Yeah,
And that kind of
accessibility,
puts
that word. Yeah.
accessibility. Yeah, that's actually what I just should have said.
No, no,
I'm
but
like,
that was just so overused in all my presentations the last
yeah,
5 years. So no worries. Yeah.
got you. Same page. Yeah, so that already kind of puts us on the back foot for a lot of this, the technological growth in the rest of the world. We just kind of gonna bound to be behind in that respect. Yeah, so that there's a lot that I want to ask from what you just said as well. I'm gonna pick up on that in a bit. Um, I
Awesome.
wanted to ask you lastly about Red Bull. I know there's a lot. Firstly, I know you've been asked these questions a lot, but I'm sure that people that are watching are going to be interested in this. So I wanted to know what you learned from working at Red Bull, um, and that as well. There'll be a lot, but what your sort of takeaways are from there.
Yes, I mean, going back on what I was saying earlier of like this, running my own events and all of that. I kind of went into Red Bull thinking like, oh, cool, I've got this. It's going to be so easy. I've been doing my own events, working under pressure. A lot of the time, kind of, I'm running the pre-campaign. I'm on the ground setting up the PCs, the little LAN, the network setup. I'm adminning the tournament. I'm casting the tournament. I'm doing everything on my own, kind of like a one-man show. And think, oh, geez, now I'm jumping into this team. It's going to be so easy. But my
Yeah.
biggest lesson my biggest lesson and something that I even still struggle with today is, and I think you probably do too, we're too nice, Chloe,
We've
we're way
had
too nice people, we've had this
we've had
conversation
this
before.
conversation.
Yeah.
I was telling
And
my mom. Yeah.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just telling my mom we had this conversation about being, I was telling her that I was going to interview you today, and I was like, yeah, like Luca and I had this conversation about not wanting to let anyone down ever, being nice all the time, and like maybe, taking a while to kind of have boundaries around what we're willing to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's interesting you say that.
Yeah, 100%. And that was really like my biggest like blessing and curse. Like when it comes to working with people,
Mm.
I feel like that's probably my biggest strength. I really love working with people and bringing teams together and really utilizing individual strength in their specific kind of department and finding that strength and then really bringing it into the project and making best use of it. I
Mm-hmm.
got to the point where you'd find the people and you just wouldn't be able to kind of tell someone that they're doing something incorrectly. I was very bad at that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would say my my big learnings. I was so fortunate to work with my boss for the majority of my tenure at Red Bull. I won't put any names down. So he's a private guy, but I'm sure he probably wouldn't have a problem. But I'll rather be safe with it. But he was an amazing boss, amazing manager. Never micromanaged. He was so
Mm-hmm.
trusting of everyone in his team. You'd have regular catch ups, but it was more just to kind of more check in on you. Really appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
He trusted his team, which was so important, and that's something that I've come to learn as well. You're brought into that environment because you are trusted. The thing about Red Bull is they would never bring someone on that they don't believe can do the job. So going
Mm-hmm.
in there with that confidence and just learning from him in terms of overall project and team management, I could argue say that he is the best locally, if not globally, like sports event manager in the world. He's had so many incredible opportunities, worked on massive projects outside of Red Bull, like even the World Cup here in South Africa back in 2010. So just having access to his brain, the way he works with people, the way he builds his teams, the way he negotiates with partnerships, the way he brings in agencies and manages those on projects and really gives them kind of the tools to activate this amazing moment. And that's the big thing about kind of his message was always that people must leave with this like, holy shit, I'm so bummed that I missed this event, or holy shit,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to come back next year. Like this is all I'm thinking about, And And that's really like the
Yeah.
intention is you never go, if you feel like you're going to go small, don't do it, and that was the big one for me is less is more. And sometimes less can just mean, less occasions and focusing harder on the ones that are super important to really make them stand out and leave this kind of emotion with whoever attended. And that's why I felt was so good at that specifically, kind of giving something to people to leave with, and always kind of having a bit of a memory with them, whether it be an image or an item, something that happened, like meeting someone they just absolutely idolized at these events, and engaging with these people, making them feel like they're part of the occasion. Sometimes just making a casual person feel like a hero is really the most powerful thing for someone attending an event. So I think that was really a huge learning for me, was obviously highlighting the athletes on the field, but the people attending, the fans who really fuel the culture. And I think that's going back to gaming and our discussion about, are we ready for esports? Because is there really that fan culture to kind of fuel it just yet? So yeah, I think just delegation, massive learning there for me was really learning how to manage a team and handing over tasks and kind of holding people accountable. That's something I always struggled with, is again being too nice. So you end up overworking and becoming frustrated and actually kind of resentful of things in some cases. And you realize, holy shit, it's actually my fault. Like I could have alleviated this, and I'm like maybe getting frustrated with this person who's not doing something, but it's like, dude, you didn't tell them they weren't doing it in the first place. So it really is your fault. So yeah, I think that had to be the big one, and that's like from learning how to work with internal team members in the office you're seeing them every day. You're spending more time with these people than family, than friends. So they almost have to become quite close, and you have to be able to be honest and trusting. So yeah, working with internal team members, managing agencies, influencers like Chloe herself, and obviously massive gaming athletes, international, local, and actual sporting athletes, and people who are just huge in the world of like entertainment. Working with these people was a huge learning for me. It's kind of, they are human beings at the end of the day, and we look at these like people like they're like these gods, in sport, but actually the camera turns off, it's another human being, and finding the way to get the best out of people. That was my biggest learning for sure.
Yeah. The sort of like passion you speak about, you didn't use the word exactly, but that sort of passion that you speak about, it was definitely, for the record, definitely evident through your work. The way you spoke about your work, the way you spoke about events, the way you worked when no one, or you thought no one was watching, you did everything from like packing the fridges to being on the mic to chaperoning people to organizing these crazy things. Like it definitely translates, and I think that anyone who knows you can testify to that. So it's cool to hear that.
Uncle Blush, yeah.
Uncle Blush.
Thank you. Appreciate it. No, it's a huge part of it. It's meeting amazing people too, and like it really was. It's been a treat, the whole process.
Yeah. So you recently went back to content creation full time. I think you finished with Red Bull last year. I'm not sure exactly when it was. It was like towards
so it's
the
March,
third
April.
or fourth quarter.
It was April.
Okay, yeah.
April Comic Con was my last project for Red Bull South Africa. So that was towards the end of April last year. May, I was kind of just consulting a little bit. May, June, helping a few brands externally. Just with a few projects, and then I kind of like, I want to say, put my foot down. I was like, okay, Luca, if you're going to go into this, like, you just need to go full in, like, take the risk, eat through those savings if you have to, and just give it your full attention. And that's been really me trying to figure that out for the last 6 to 7 months. I'll be honest, I don't think I've capitalized on it. Like, it's just being critical of myself. A lot of learnings, how things work nowadays, how to be productive. I mean, I told you, I love games, so that's the huge issue for me. It's like, dude, you can't just be playing. You need to be working as well. So like I'm playing to like edit a video, record a video. Suddenly I'm like 4 hours into my gaming session. Like, okay, bro, you actually need to start editing that footage now, So time management, probably my biggest challenge. But yeah, it's been about, 9 months now? Now that I've been behind my PC playing games all day and recording videos. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you say like playing games all day and stuff, but it's a lot of energy goes into it. Like just adding a camera and the interaction aspect, it's a lot of energy. Yeah, like you're doing a lot of
Massive
things at
mind
one
games
time.
as well. My
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
I'm sure you know as well. Hey, your mind, every morning you wake up like, Jesus, bro, you make the right decision. What are you doing? It works on yourself. What are you going to do? What video today? Or what do you think people are going to be interested in? You spend hours on a video, super complicated. You post it up, does pretty average. Then you post literally a 5-second stupid meme from like one recording and it does 10 times better. The cliche, like, oh my God, like what is the formula, And
exactly.
as everything, it's just been, I think the biggest one has just been like consistency. It's realizing that, and I think that's something we all struggle with as gaming creators locally. It's a big learning process.
For me, consistency was the hardest thing. Like I would always tell people like consistency is so important, but I was the worst at it. I like didn't stream for 4 months, then I didn't stream for 7 months, then I didn't post, I went dark. Yeah.
It's like what doesn't work through experience.
I tried it in order to find out if it was really the truth. Yeah. What made you decide to what made you decide to go back to content creation? I'm going to hazard a guess and say that it's because it's what you really love and you always wanted to go back to content creation. So what was the thinking behind it?
If I could say it was like logically feasible for me to like go into playing competitively, I would probably do that first. I even re-asked me, like my wife recently asked me the question, like today, if you had to be doing your like dream job right now, there was no like stopping you, I'd be a competitive Call of Duty player, or a competitive Street Fighter player. But I'm 32 years old, so it's something that requires like immense kind of tunnel vision on one game, and not even like really including the content part of it and kind of that being feasible now. It's so difficult. Whereas what is the second best thing and what's going to get me to allow myself to play games at kind of a high level and still make a living out of it? Like the streaming part of it was definitely the next best thing. Not saying that it's like the second option, but it's the best option in terms of like my desired job, if you want to call it that. That really was the calling, and excuse me, funnily enough, speaking to the athlete manager at Red Bull in my kind of the last few months of me being at the company, he's actually like an ex-surfer, like multiple Guinness World Record holders for like certain surfing challenges, and he's working with the best athletes in the country and globally, like the guy who signed Sia Khaleesi and goes for beers with Brad Binder and Geordie every now and then. He's connected with that world and sees it firsthand. And he told me like the one closet that one skeleton he has in his closet is that he never went for that pro surfing journey, and that's always going to be there for him. He said, Luca, you're 31 years old at the time. Take the risk, go for it. You can find a job again one day, whether it's back at the Bull or somewhere else, but you're never going to be able to take that chance again. Just now there's little RoBoHoBos running around here or something, and there's no chance I'm going to be leaving a secure job, So it was a now or never kind of thing. And had such immense support from the team, which made it a lot easier. I was like, oh, these guys are going to be pissed off with me for just leaving, but they were so supportive. Even me, we pull this out for you.
Yes.
I even got my own little cartoon made for me.
Yes, I saw that. Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, my boss, he handed that to me at like a little farewell party, and I was like, oh my God, here come the tears.
That's iconic, man.
So RoBoHoBo got cartooned.
So did they? Did they like get who's the artist? Because it's in the Red Bull style that we all know, right?
Like, our brand team put this together. So actually Temba, he's I would guess Temba is the doctor, so the marketing executive over here, the scientist.
Okay.
But the cartoons and just the entire Red Bull cartoon catalog comes through the brand team, internal agency. So some people who are just absolutely fully focused on how Red Bull is perceived to the public, and they created that cartoon for me. They sat behind me, so we had like sports team, and then right behind us was the brand team, and it's obviously very close with them and saw them every day. And that was such a cool surprise. Definitely. I was so cool. I was crying.
So cool, man.
But so supportive. They were honestly amazing and made it so much easier. And it was always like, hey, come and you'll always be able to go by the office and hang out with the homies and go say hello.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made some of my closest mates from the local office and even internationally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, just amazing people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so speaking of content creation, Laurie, your wife, who you recently got married, I think
Thank
that
you.
was
Yeah,
a
a couple months ago.
couple months ago. Yeah,
Yeah, December.
congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Took long enough.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. What was it like? 10 years or
12
something?
years. 12
12
years. Yeah, my
years.
family started giving me shit. That's always my joke. Like, that's when you know. It's like, okay, it's about time, bro.
Oh man, yeah! Congratulations! I saw you guys just before your wedding. And Laurie
Thank you.
is a very successful content creator. She is the Big Tasty Bite for anyone who doesn't know. I don't know if I'm like allowed to say
Hey,
this,
definitely some kudos there.
but
She's makes some gaming snacks every now and then too, so she'll be streaming soon
yeah.
as well.
Yes, that is going to be amazing. I'm super excited for that. It's such a perfect content type to be streaming, honestly.
Yeah, she's gonna smash it, I reckon. Yeah, no, it's gonna be awesome. No, she's left me in the dust. I'm playing catch up now. She's done so
Soon.
amazingly for herself. It was
Yeah.
actually in the COVID period where that's actually when I just kind of was fully immersed at Red Bull, super secured my
Mm-hmm.
work. She was actually in the food industry at the time, and obviously COVID just absolutely annihilated that. Her work became very difficult. Honestly, I wish I could wear in ears. I'm just as bad. They just fall out all the time. But yeah, she was just fully kind of or hit extremely hard by COVID.
Mm.
And she had the choice, like take this kind of reduced position, which really was hard, gnarly work, to be honest, or take this risk. She's always loved cooking. She's super passionate about it just from a young age, like a purely home taught chef from her mom.
Mm.
And I was secure, so it was like, look, babe, go for it. Like 100% fully immerse yourself. And, we didn't have like any concerns in the sense of like financial stability at the time. So she just fully immersed herself. And 2 years later, it was like that real viral moment that like everyone waits for. And honestly, she just really proved the point to me of it's pure consistency. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
suck for a year or two, but that
Yeah.
moment or those moments will come. And she made like a mochi cake, like very sponge cake, super tasty. I think she had like 4 million views on that in like a couple weeks, a week or two. And her Instagram went from like 10K to like 150K in like that December, January period, like literally a
Yeah.
month and a half, just exploded. And she's
Crazy.
obviously been like just building on that momentum since then. So yeah, no, she absolutely smashed it. And it was just being consistent and slowly just improving your the way things look and the way you present your
Mm.
content, and you kind of find the rhythm that works for you, and what content people are interested in, and really start to filter down what works, and kind of allows you
Mm-hmm.
just to prioritize and release much more content because you're just not wasting time. So
Yeah.
yeah, she's done extremely well for herself, and it's very fun, been very fun watching it and being involved in it in some way. Like I'm always kind of that like first filter before it goes online. Like, what do you think of this? Give it a
Yeah.
listen. Like, what did you think as like a neutral non-foodie? Probably like my favorite deal in the whole thing, or two favorite parts of the deal, is I get to taste test everything. So that's why I started like pretty strictly going to the gym
Nice.
since last year, because like I
Yeah.
was slowly turning into the marshmallow man, no joke. Um, and then the occasional kind of outing she gets invited to, like testing at a new
Mm-hmm.
restaurant or a new restaurant openings. I get to be the plus one most of the time, and kind of
Yeah.
my payment for the treat is I do all kind of the shoots on the day, so she can interact with the chef and the restaurant, enjoy the food, and I'm just like walking around with the phone, getting in there. So yeah, I'll contribute a
Nice.
little bit, but no, she's a solo job there and done an amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, she really has done amazingly. It's really cool to see. And I mean, even if you aren't a foodie, her stuff is really entertaining and interesting to watch. Easy, like yeah, she's just
Oh, you're gonna
done
make her
so
blush.
well.
Sure. I know you guys also like had only met each other like once or twice. It was at
Yeah.
the homie's birthday, but I'm sure it'll happen again.
Yeah, yeah, surely. I have to come back at least to Cape Town, I don't know. Joburg, I'm
Exactly.
not really like
Oh, please,
sorry,
please.
Joburg.
You've been there. That's done now. You're going to come and
I've
visit
been
South
there
Africa.
before.
Come
I'm
on.
done.
Like, yeah, so much more to
I
see
know.
in Cape Town.
I know. I say to people here, I'm like, they're like, do you want to go back? And I'm like, honestly, like if I go back, I'm going to Cape Town. I don't even think I'll visit Joburg. I don't know what for. Like
Well, we're waiting for you,
my
homie.
family
So
that's still there, yes. But yeah, I'll be
you'll
back
have
to Cape
an
Town.
army of homies waiting for you here for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, so there was there's often a lot of conversation, especially on I find myself on this series, Not My House, talking a lot about Twitter, because a lot
Yeah.
of conversations happen on Twitter. I'm not going
Spicy.
to bother calling it X. Everyone, yeah, spicy.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, everyone knows what Twitter is, so I'm not going to correct myself and call it X. But there are a lot of conversations that happen on Twitter. It's a very good platform, especially for gamers and content creators in South Africa. I found like I've gotten a lot of work through Twitter. And made a lot of connections, like real life connections through Twitter that have introduced me to work and opportunities and stuff. So I think it's been a great platform. There are also a lot of people that are kind of vocal about their feelings on Twitter. I try to not, express myself too much personally.
Very smart. Very smart. Very smart.
I've slipped up a couple of times, but I try not to. Yeah, and there was a time where there was a conversation around opportunities in esports and gaming in South Africa, and maybe it speaks to what you were saying earlier about South Africa being such a young esports gaming industry. But I kind of wanted to ask you to expand on that Discord, maybe give a bit of background on it, and to expand on the discourse around the lack of opportunities and sort of, I guess, like nepotism. I spoke to Jess a little bit about this as well, and what the industry really looks like in terms of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think there was quite a heated discussion June, July last year.
Yeah.
I released a video
Yeah.
which was an opinion piece, which I still in many ways still agree with. There are things that as a person grows and learns things, your opinion changes in some sense. But for me, I think just looking at the ecosystem, as I was chatting to you earlier, it is so difficult for anyone to get any kind of opportunity that includes a cash payout, and that's what people are looking for. You need to put bread on the table. You need to put food on the table. And when you think of being a professional gamer in South Africa, a professional content creator, going full time in it, you almost have to have that initial understanding that if you want to make it here in South Africa, you almost need to get the platforms to be paying you. So being a Twitch streamer, being on YouTube, getting the views that are going to pay you out, because the brands, the marketing departments in South Africa just do not have the budgets to be supporting individuals at a level that'll actually feed you month to month. That's going to pay your rent. That's going to put food on the table, pay for your medical bills. People, they see the 10K and it's like, oh, that's an amazing amount of money, homie. That's like groceries. That's your basic medical aid, some insurance, and not even including your rent. So I think that's the confusion of like what type of support people are expecting, which is justified. You're putting in the hours, you're putting in the time. There's just no funding for that yet. And that's from personal experience. Of course, companies have big budgets, but those go to multiple other departments. And I can tell you now, gaming is, even though it's exciting globally and we're online, we're integrated into that kind of global community. It's not loud for everyone else in South Africa. I can go to my mom, my older brother, who, they're in their 40s, 50s, whatever. They're immersed in an online discourse, but general sports, it's politics, it's the obvious stuff. Gaming is still very, very fresh here. But no matter what kind of demographic you're from, you're going to struggle. Obviously, there's the occasion where there's people who come in with a lot of cash, a lot of funding, and it looks super flashy and awesome for a little bit, but then it starts to plateau a little bit and really starts to cool down again, because the realization hits that there is just not enough return yet. So going back to that point of like cultivating this culture of gaming, that needs to be the priority, where things are almost too big too soon here. We have, let's say, off the top of my head, like let's say there's 100 Twitch streamers in South Africa. They're all sitting between that like 50 to 100 viewer mark. That's just not going to earn you a deal, unfortunately. And that's just talking bluntly. That's massive viewership from like a local perspective in comparison. But in terms of global, what brands needs, it's nothing. You could have a rugby player posting himself with a can of Coke and one little Instagram, and that's going to do better than an entire year of me being live on Twitch, just in terms of media outcomes for this brand. So it's really looking at things very, very harshly. We almost have to make an ecosystem for ourselves, again, through the platforms paying out, through in smaller agencies creating these opportunities like the Medal States, like the ACGLs, like what Jess and her team did now with the FEM event last week. These types of things aren't going to come from a brand. It's going to come from the individuals on the ground creating those moments. I think of the big events globally that are doing so well today still, the Dream Hacks. That was like an OC here in Cape Town that just evolved into this massive, if you want to call it a massive brand or company, which is global now. You think of someone like Jules, another local example, with Enterland. It's a nice small 60 man land. It's cozy, but that'll grow, as the first concept is proved, 60 people are there. They have a great time. Now you can level that up a little bit. What you're doing here with Not My House, it's a consistent release schedule. You're able to connect with these individuals, connect with you. You actually get to know the person. Brands start to trust Chloe because she has a delivery schedule and she sticks to it. They like your personality. They get used to you. Hey, man. I believe, but
we'll see
it
if
really
she
is
sticks to a release schedule.
It's been pretty vicious. I'll be honest. Like, holy shit, I come on in the morning. It's like 2 more episodes. I'm like, holy moly, how the hell do you do this? To be honest, it is impressive, but it is. I think we're just sadly just not ready for it yet. Just from a pure, money available, cash available in the market, and individuals like ourselves that are in power positions in these brands. I was very fortunate to join Red Bull. You now have a very committed gamer who took over my position there. You hope that competitive brands start to adopt that culture of actually employing first gamer, second marketing specialist, or finance specialist, someone who really understands the culture and then brings in that skill of project management, people management, marketing, brand work. But you really need to understand us as gamers. I mean, we're a difficult crowd. We're tough to deal with.
Yeah, and the dynamic is completely different. I think it's also, if you're in gaming and you're dealing with a marketing exec who has no gaming background, you can definitely tell just with your interactions. And it's not necessarily a criticism from me, but it's just like, and then I'm about to say the most critical thing.
The way of the world.
It's like, it's not a criticism of them, but it's just like you can tell that they have no idea how different the industry is.
And you can't expect them to be passionate about it,
I mean, it's not an
they
expectation.
don't want to see
like
gaming succeed. That's the thing. If a gaming can sell my product, awesome. But you need someone who actually loves gaming. It's like, I want to see a Jabi Mabuza attending the Capcom World Championship and playing for $1 million because he qualified from our event, got that experience overseas, and now he's a global athlete ranked within the top 32 in the world, and that's not the thought in the marketing exec who's trying to sell a keyboard, and he doesn't even game. It's like, got colors, it's flashy, it sounds nice, sell it. It's like, no, it doesn't really work like that. There's a lot more options. Like, I have a keyboard here that you can't even buy in South Africa, because I went and hunted for this thing and wanted to find the little perfect niche item, and that's the kind of people you're dealing with, us gamers. We're stupid, but also really smart.
It's interesting because it's like, I think because the industry is so like tight knit, or the community, I should say, is so tight knit in that we've all like got our fingers on the pulse with everyone kind of vibe, or mostly for the most part. I think there's more concentration in the influence of a gamer in South Africa because it's such a, niche industry. You have more influence, like a streamer in South Africa has more influence because his community or her community trusts them more than you would necessarily trust someone you see in Seven Delan, maybe. I'm not saying to the same scale. I'm not saying that at all, but because you have that daily two-way interaction,
Yeah. Yeah.
that two-way communication, you taking advantage of like parasocial relationships. So I think it is more than like a follow account in that respect. But we ultimately do need to have the numbers to give companies ROI, which brings me to the question: what do you think will make South African gaming, entertainment, and esports industry qualify as a worthy industry, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think if I look at like gaming overall, it's just like the general concept of it. You look at events like Rage, like Comic Con, filling up the halls in many respects on those event weekends. So we know we do have gamers here, and people who are passionate about it. We're talking like 40 to 50,000 people that attend these events over the weekend. So we do exist to some extent, but it's how do we speak to that broad base of gamers without kind of segmenting the community through like, okay, these niche little esports jocks that are in that corner. We got the girl gamers in that corner. We got the mobile gamers. We got the console guys over there. And that's the problem we're dealing with at the moment.
There
I
is
feel
massive segmentation, yeah, within the
yeah.
industry, which is, I'm laughing like, but it's just because it's, I don't know if unnecessary is the word, but it's just
Please
like
shoot it.
we don't all need to not like get along, right? Like
Exactly.
we're all trying to do this.
It's so competitive because it's so small. One person gets a deal, you feel like everyone else is being forgotten. Who's like doing the most with that opportunity? Like, they didn't do what I could have done with it. So it's this constant kind of comparison. But at the end of the day, like kind of going off topic, whoever managed to get that deal obviously put the effort to get it. They went and communicated. They put themselves out there, maybe pushed into the front of the line. Unfortunately, business is ruthless like that. Sometimes you just have to be quite aggressive. Something I'm not good at. I'll just sit back here and hope that one day, like some sponsor just throws the cash at me. I feel like you need to like deliver and they'll just come. They build it and they will come. Like that kind of attitude. In some cases, it does work, but you do have to go for it. I feel it's really just celebrating, going back to just celebrating the idea of gaming, speaking about kind of the highlighting the AAAs, creating occasions where we can all hang out and connect and be social, realize that there are human beings behind the camera. It was a question I got from the Nibble team while I was at Interland. What does something like Interland do? And it really does that. It kind of creates the humanity again in the space. We are all people that just love games, and that should really level the playing field. We shouldn't be dealing with kind of whether you call it racial segmentation or gender segmentation. It's maybe the one environment where a woman and a man can compete on equal levels if the experience is equal. So I always put the point down when I was 8 years old, I was on my Sega. My niece or my cousin, same age, she was playing with a kitchen, like little kitchen cooking tool or her dollhouse. That was just the culture, girls, boys back then. Now my little sister, who's 21, she's studying 3D animation. She got passionate for that through games. I would play Ark with her, Ark Survival, and she'd be teaching me like how to build certain bases, how to tame certain dinosaurs. And eventually she's on Call of Duty. She's a comfortable, pretty skilled gamer. And that just came through starting at a young age like I did. So I think as that kind of playing field balances out from a gender perspective, from an accessibility perspective, as we spoke about earlier, we'll start seeing kind of the gaming side becoming more common. And then we can start really talking about esports. I always like to use the example of Jubby. It's hands down probably my favorite story alongside Tabo, who's the Red Bull athlete. Jubby, this is like one of those stories which I know there's another individual out there, hundreds of them that could be just like him. He was he pulled into my event in my venue in Joburg in Kempton Park. It was the online arena, little kind of gaming cafe. We had the Arena Fight Nights tournament that weekend. Him and his brother were in the venue. It was, I'll be honest, there was maybe one white dude competing. So it just shows you like certain games just kind of are more natural to a certain audience because of the accessibility element. Like consoles are just cheaper, easier to get a hold of. Kind of anime culture is quite entrenched in the African demographic locally. I always made the very, very naughty kind of comparison in my big meetings that, you were either a teenager watching SABC One late at night, which were kung fu movies, or you're watching ETV. So hopefully it was SABC One, because that was Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
ETV
Oh,
was
yeah. ETV.
naughty movies. And that culture is stuck. You look at anime here in South Africa, we have a huge anime culture. And that's why fighting games do well within that community. Jabi walked in, played in my tournament, played top 16, placed top 16, really quiet, was like sitting in the corner with his brother. They weren't really connecting with anyone. I just took it upon myself just to go chat to them, as I did with everyone else in the venue. And I was like, how are you guys? Thanks for coming through. Like, how did you learn to play? You guys are pretty decent. They're like, no, we don't actually have a console. We just learn from watching YouTube videos. So they literally would watch these guys kind of playing the game, combos, kind of situational awareness within games. And that's how they learn. So at the time, I didn't have the best relationship with the investors at Arenas. So I was like, look, dude, we've got an extra console here. Just take it, bro. And so they took the console. A year later, I'm at Red Bull. He wins the Johannesburg qualifier at Rush. First flight to Cape Town, comes to the national final. We closed down the whole of Breer Street in front of Lobster House there. You remember that it is in Breer Street.
Yeah.
So that whole strip
Yeah.
closed down. Had like 1,000 people in the street. They're watching Street Fighter on a big screen. Jabi wins in front of that crowd, finds himself on his second plane trip, which is to Japan for a whole week at Red Bull Kumite, and put on a show there, came back, qualified a second time, couldn't go to London that year because of COVID. Third time, qualifies again, goes to Vegas. And then that same year, he also qualifies for the World Championship of Street Fighter. So he finds himself in the US. And now for a second time, he was in the US again, playing for $1 million, with the top 32 best players in the world, and genuinely like holding his ground. He wasn't like just a washover. He was dominating some guys, So we have that talent here. And it's accessibility, which will kind of cure that issue of these hidden gems, which we just can't find. They're out there, but they don't have access to a 50,000 Rand computer so they can play all these games and broadcast at the same time, or a PS5 to have that 120 frames per second performance now, which everyone else is used to. So I think it's accessibility and really just kind of building that culture again around gaming, celebrating gaming just as that form of entertainment, and not getting so serious about it so soon. And that's something that hurts to say, because I love competitive gaming. I love esports. I wish we could, treat our gamers like professional footballers, but it's just not ready yet. And we're talking like America, Europe, our East are still struggling. So how can we expect gaming to be, or rather esports to be viable financially in South Africa? We're just not ready yet from an ecosystem and a budget perspective. So it's hard to say. The solution really now, if you want to be a pro gamer in South Africa or a pro streamer content creator, you need to go in there knowing that you are kind of on your own. It's a tough place. Like you were saying earlier, that mental strength that you need every day to know that every little bit of profit that comes back to you, it's only coming back if you're going to put in the work and deliver content, put yourself out there, sitting on your PC, practicing 8 to 10 hours a day, playing that one specific game that you want to go professional in. And you're not really going to get much support then probably from your parents. And if your parents can't support you, then you're working a job and practicing part-time, which is just, it's gnarly. It's difficult. I tried to do, started streaming back in 2022, early 2022, while I was still working at Red Bull. I thought I could manage it. I got like a month or two into streaming, was going so well. I was feeling the momentum. My guys editing for me because I obviously had cash to just spend on an editor through my work. And I was just cruising, and then bang, like this huge shuffling of the calendar. Other events came into the plan. All my events kind of changed on the calendar, kind of got smashed into like kind of short periods across the entire year. So I just didn't have the time to stream anymore. And it was just like this sinking feeling, like, oh my God, it's going good, but I can't continue it. I have to choose my work. And then throughout that year, it was this constant like eating away. And that's why I just made the call, like, let's take the risk. But that's really the position that someone has to put themselves in. It's very risky. Some cases might be a bit stupid, but you got to go for it. You got to go for it.
Exactly.
It's a lonely place being a pro gamer or gaming content creator. I commend anyone who takes the leap, for sure.
No, for sure. Okay, last thing I actually just wanted to make this as a joke, but I think we're going to try to.
Please go for it.
When you were talking about gaming, like, oh yeah, I love gaming. I was going to be like, name every game.
Okay.
Okay,
Holy
fine.
shit.
Name every game.
Google.
Okay, I'm going to give you a minute. Minute to name as many games as you can. And like sequels that go 1, 2, 3 don't count. If it's a different name, it's fine.
Shit, I just lost 15 games there with Final Fantasy.
Yeah, you were just like, name the Final Fantasy, easy, fine.
Literally.
Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute and I'll try and keep track of how many you mention. Okay, ready and
Call of Duty is
go.
going to save me now. We got Call of Duty 1, we got Call of Duty United Offensive, we have Call of Duty Black Ops, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, we have Call of Duty Vanguard, World at War, Advanced Warfare, Ghosts, we have Resident Evil, we have Resident Evil The Village, Final Fantasy, obviously there's like 16, 17 games in that package. Abe's Odyssey, I know you're a huge fan of that. Metal Gear Solid, so obviously that's like 1, 2, and 3, but there's also Metal Gear Revengeance, which is another game. There is obviously the Chrono Trigger series, the Pokemon series. Obviously, you got all of those there. So the blue, whites, reds, yellows, greens. That could kind of probably cover 100 games there for me alone. You have the, I did mention Metal Gear. There is, like the Tales of Arise series, which I've been enjoying. You got Ghosts of Tsushima. You got Dark Souls series. Sekiro, Bloodborne, obviously time. Elden Ring. Okay, there we go. No, it can go on forever. She's like, okay, there's so many.
See it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I think I counted correctly.
1 game every 3 seconds. I'll take it.
I mean, you didn't stop at any point. You weren't like stopping to buffer or anything. So I think you did pretty well.
Thank you. No, it's so much joy. All those worlds that we've been graced with to escape in, for sure. It's been a sanctuary for me in many periods of my life. So I'm very grateful to gaming and the people that I've met within it, for sure.
Yeah. Luca, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you as always. So much quality in this like hour and 10 minutes. So thank you. Your insight is also like invaluable. I think I'll have you on again when I've done my rounds.
Double the hours, yeah. It's lucky to hang out with you.
Yeah, thanks, Luca.
No, it's only a pleasure. Actually laughing now because obviously you're at